because of your intros.
All right, here we go. Welcome to this bonus episode of the IVMV podcast. And yes, we just released an episode a day or two ago, and the Cubs season is finished. So why in the world would we be putting out a bonus episode? That's probably what you're asking yourself right now.
Yes, I am.
Kurt's wondering why I've called him on a Monday night to podcast. Well, September 30th, we're recording this Monday evening, and September 30th, Tuesday, September 30th, that's tomorrow, is National Podcast Day. And we're doing this bonus episode in celebration of that day. We're not going to talk about the Cubs at all. We're going to talk about podcasting. When we, as individuals, discovered it, we'll tell you kind of the history of the IVMV podcast. We're going to talk about the apps and programs that we use to listen to podcasts, and then we'll share some of our favorite podcasts that we listen to now and maybe ones that aren't around anymore. So if you're listening to this, you're probably a fan of podcasts, and you will hopefully enjoy this episode. If you're not a fan of podcasts and you have no desire to listen to us talk about the topic, then feel free to stop listening now, and we'll have a regular episode of our podcast. I'm just giving people an out.
Once you've started, you can't stop.
This train is on the tracks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, if podcasts aren't your thing, then we'll have a regular episode of the podcast out on Sunday with the usual Cubs talk and Chuck Mangione sweet horn licks. So
There's like somebody out there who's like, I sure hate podcasts. I make an exception for IVMV, but the rest of them are garbage.
So we should probably introduce ourselves in case this is your first time listening. We are a Chicago Cubs podcast, so this is very out of the ordinary for us. My name is Corey. I'm one of the hosts, and then joining me through a Google Plus Hangout, which many podcasters use, are the two other hosts of this podcast.
Hello, it's Andy.
And this is Kurt.
Should we count how many times we used the word podcast on this episode?
Well, yeah, let's do an over-under.
Yeah, no
Just
kidding.
counting.
So I posted on our Facebook page today, like, hey, we're doing a bonus episode tonight, not on the Cubs. What do you think the topic is? And I looked earlier in the day, and it was like 80% just beer.
Yeah. Sorry to
I'm not even
disappoint.
drinking beer tonight.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I planned on it. I picked up a beer that I really want to try, but then I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it, so I decided to drink water instead.
I'm feeling it, you guys.
What are you drinking?
I got a Great Lakes sampler. It's a beer out of Cleveland, Ohio, where the river burns. And I have an Edmund Fitzgerald handcrafted porter.
That sounds good. I like porters.
And me too. It's pretty good.
The beer I want to try, it's kind of stupid that I want to try it, but it just kind of sounded. I mean, have you guys tried that Baraboo stuff? I mean, it's kind of generic, right?
Yeah.
But they got like a campfire or something one.
Oh, it's a Marzen, which is like an Oktoberfest.
Yeah, so I picked one of those up. I thought, have you tried it yet?
I have not tried that one. I've tried most of their others, and they're pretty bland.
Yeah. I
don't
figured
know.
it would be, but that for some reason
It's a Hy-Vee exclusive, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, I think so. As far as I know, yeah.
I think so. Some brewery signed some deal with them.
Right. Okay, so let's talk podcasts. So I'm kind of curious when and how you guys discovered the medium of podcasting.
I think honestly, for me, it was my first intro to podcasting was when I was on this podcast for the first time, because I wasn't into it until you guys. I mean, you guys sort of introduced me, and then as we started doing it, you started telling me about other stuff you were listening to. So for me, it was really this that got me into it.
So like around 2009.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
How about you, Andy?
Well, I had a period of my life where I was commuting pretty far to go to school, and I'd say that was the first time that I really started listening to podcasts regularly. And I feel like I just started browsing them in the iTunes store, or something like that, and I had been a listener of This American Life, just tuning in when it broadcast on the radio. And so I started downloading those, and I listened to those pretty voraciously on my drive to college, which was about an hour and a half away. So I could get an entire episode in, one way, basically.
Ivor Glass coming through your car speakers.
Yeah, and so there's no looking back since then. At that point, I just started looking for other ones and kind of compounded, and from there, I guess.
And I should add though that's probably when I really got more into it though, because like I think all of us at some point, and Corey probably you still do, is the commuting thing. I drove from the Quad Cities to Iowa City, which is about an hour each way for I don't even remember how long, a year or so, not quite a year. So yeah, I was listening to a ton of podcasts then.
Do you listen to as many now?
I don't, mostly because I listen to them at work now, but I still have a fairly large number of subscriptions, and then I kind of have my own system of keeping up, which I don't know if we want to dig into that kind of stuff now, but
yeah, we can get into that. I first discovered podcasts, and I didn't know that that's what they were when I first found them. Somehow, it was in 2000. Like podcasting basically started. I think it was like October of 2004, or somewhere in there, 2004, 2005, and I somehow found this directory, I guess, and it was really complicated to try to subscribe to podcasts then. Like I had some program that I used, and I don't remember what it was, but it had a little lemon on it, so maybe it was like podcast or something lemon. I don't know. It's citrus something or other. I don't remember what it was called. But and it was like this crazy program to try to use, and like it was really difficult to search. There was like no.
So this would have been on your computer, right?
Right. It was on my computer, and there was no such thing as like artwork for it or anything like that. It was like the feed, the like crazy feed for it, and I found
like the Matrix code, just
right.
search through it, and
had to watch the code go by and decipher the audio.
So I found a Notre Dame podcast I listened to that's actually still around, and I still listen to it, and so I listened to that, and then that was when I found Ewell in the Bluegrass Preservation Society.
Oh yes,
Gasaway County, another podcast that's still around. So it's kind of weird that like the first two podcasts I found still exist, and I have no idea how that dude was on the leading edge of technology. It makes no sense to me. But maybe we can get into him. We can get into him a little bit later. But I still listen to him every week. So I kind of found that, and I listened to him maybe like through that Notre Dame season, and then I think I kind of stopped listening to it because it was just really difficult to try to find things, and there was no device to put them on, so it was just kind of like you sitting at your computer and listening to something, which some people may still consume podcasts that way. But then I really think it wasn't until, Andy, when you were doing your commute and you kind of mentioned podcasts to me, and I was like, podcast, what's that? And then you explained it to me, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I've listened to those before. I just didn't know that's what it was called. And that was maybe what, like 2007?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And then I picked up a side job that allowed me to wear headphones, and so that was when I got really hooked because I was listening to them a couple hours a day straight when I was doing that stuff, and that was when I really started kind of exploring. That was when I got my Zune.
Oh yeah, I remember that thing.
My big brown Zune. That if I leaned a certain way, it would short out and restart the whole thing, and I would lose the episode I was listening to.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Are
frustrating.
you looking forward to the new Zune that's coming out?
No.
The Zune 7.
Yeah. So that was kind of when I got, hooked on it was then, and I just the whole, I kind of grew up kind of a talk radio nerd. I didn't even though I didn't agree with a lot of the politics of talk radio, I really enjoyed listening to them. And I was just always like kind of interested in AM radio, Art Bell, of course, and stuff like that. And so like this was kind of like a DIY talk radio, and it just fascinated me that I could listen to. I didn't have to listen to what the radio was forcing me to listen to, and I didn't have to listen to all the commercials, and I didn't have to listen to everything I did not like about AM radio, and it allowed me instead to, like, because it's so niche, I was able to go in and like find specific topics that I was interested in and consume the audio that I wanted, not that was being forced on me.
Yeah, man, and that's a beautiful thing. Just it gives anyone a platform, and then you can find like-minded people and seek out what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, and to kind of go along with that, we're going to get into the podcasts that we like and everything, but I'm kind of interested in, like, Andy, you just mentioned giving a platform to anyone. I think there's a lot of, especially like back when we started listening to podcasts, it was a lot of amateurs like we are, and then it seems like over the years, like, radio has kind of adapted, and they're like, I mean, look at what NPR does, and it fits the podcast thing well because there aren't commercials and it's just kind of a long form story or whatever. But I early on, and I still really enjoy the amateurs and the people that are just like kind of letting you in on their lives. I mean, a big, like, I guess inspiration to me, some of it was Don and Drew, the Don and Drew show, and just seeing that these were like, they were just a couple that sat down behind mics and let you into their lives, but like they were funny and they were interesting, and so they like kept me hooked, and they were putting out like 3 episodes a week, and I was listening to every one. I couldn't wait for them, and it felt like I knew them as friends because they were the type of people that I would be friends with, and I learned a lot from them, that how important it is, like, as a podcaster, that there are people out there that probably feel like they know us because they hear us every week, and it's important, and like what they let people in, you know what I mean? They threw parties and they just invited their listeners. So the first time I met them, I was listening. They live up in Wisconsin, and it was just like, hey, we're throwing a party. If you want to go, email me. So I like emailed them, and I was like, hey, my wife and I might be interested in coming up. And he like emailed me back right away, and I was like, oh my God, that's Drew Domkes. He just emailed me. That's crazy. I thought it was so cool. And then like to go up and hang out with
Nobody
them.
does that with us.
I know. But I'm just saying, like, I learned a lot, that like how it is, like, you do form a community around your show, and that when you are real and authentic and you let people in, then they feel like they know you, and that's a good place to start, like a communication, I guess. I was going to say relationship, but that would sound creepy. So, I was kind of thinking about this today, and I thought, I don't really know if we've talked about our journey with the IVNB podcast on our podcast. I've told the story quite a few times when I've been interviewed on other podcasts, usually podcasts on podcasting or new media, social media, stuff like that. And so I've talked about it a lot, but I thought, I don't know if our listeners, especially people that have found us in the last couple of years, really know where we came from and how we got to doing the way we do it now and stuff like that. So I've been talking a lot. You guys can chime in here. How did we start?
No, I want to hear you tell it. I mean,
yeah, I think that's your story to tell, and we can chime in.
Should I just go ahead and mute you guys?
Yeah. I can just hang up. This hangout isn't working that well anyways.
Well, I mean, this is the way that I explain it when I'm interviewed, is basically that, we started off as a Cubs blog. So we started in 2008, the beginning of the 2008 season, as a blog. We did that, and it was going okay, I guess. I don't know. I don't like blogging, really. I don't like writing that much. I mean, I do once I'm into it, but it's hard for me to get started. And so we were really into, Andy, I know that you were too, like, into podcasts and stuff like that. And I thought, man, like, and at the time there was Cubs Cast, and I kind of saw them as like the more, I don't know, kind of professional. Like they were normal guys too, but they felt like their show was put together well and stuff like that. And I thought, that's cool, but the reason that we started the blog was because anytime Andy, you and I got together, and we got together with my cousins and some of our friends, all we did was talk about the Cubs, whether we were going to the bar or we were doing a barbecue or whatever. We just talked about the Cubs, and I thought, well, it'd be really cool to have those conversations behind microphones, just normal fan talk. And a lot of the people, I'm glad it seems that we've been able to maintain that, because it's still mentioned in our reviews and stuff that it makes you feel like you're hanging out with us at a bar. And that's, even though we've kind of like improved our show, I think, as far as style and just like the way that we prepare for shows and the way that we conduct the shows. I guess it's a little bit more put together, where before, like when we started our podcast, like I'm not joking, we did not go in with any idea what we were going to talk about. My show prep was a Post-it note with 2 things written on it, and we just had no clue, and we just sat down and we just talked about the Cubs, whatever came up,
Well, the first episode. Oh, sorry, I'll let you.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, I think the first episode, and you can correct my counting, but weren't there like 8 or 9 of us?
I believe there was 9 of us. Okay, so let's think. It was I'm gonna go around the room. It was me,
I can still remember where we were all sitting too, sharing mics.
Matt Vito sat next to me. So me, Vito, you two, Paul, and Tim. Seems like there was, I don't know. Is that only 6?
I thought there was more.
Yeah, it seems like there was more than that. Oh. I can't think of who it would be, but it seemed like there was
26 of us.
Right. Okay, but we had, I did not know what I was doing as far as equipment goes. I had no background with sound, really, and so I think we had like 2 or 3 mixers. We had a bunch. We were sharing microphones. I had like a headset on that was like a USB. I have no idea. And if you go back and listen to our first episode, it sounds like there was one microphone in the middle of the room picking up everything. And, we really
probably would have been better.
Right. And really, what made it so much better for us, like I'm not sure we would have been able to stick around, but Jason, our friend Jason, stepped in. And really, I think he listened to that episode and he's like, "Hey guys, well, why don't you let me help you out?"
It's kind of funny that we have sort of eras, because we have been doing this while. We have the backyard patio era, and then we have Jason's dining room era, and now we're in the sort of the Google Plus Hangout era.
Well, we had my basement era.
Yeah, the basement era, the basement studio era. That was fairly short-lived, because then I moved and you moved, and so.
Yeah. So it was after. So we blogged for 1 season, and then right before the 2009 season, we decided to start the podcast. And the Cubs have been god-awful ever since.
Yeah, that was coming off the 2008 season, so we thought it was going to be fun. Just a great time.
Do you think if we had just, like, in 2008, or like January 2009, when we're putting this thing together, and somebody handed us the record that the Cubs would have over the next 6 seasons, do you think we would have...
Screw this. Yeah. Hey, Kurt, guess what? In 2014, you're going to be sitting in your basement, 8:30 on a Monday,
right?
A Sunday,
dimly lit by just a nightlight.
So
I did want to bring up one other thing. Like, you were talking about the community thing, and like, you guys have been friends forever, but like that's pretty much how I snuck into this thing. Is when you guys were doing the blog, like I was reading pretty regularly, and I knew you guys kind of friend of a friend situation, and was introduced and had come to some of like the backyard barbecue parties and stuff, and then just through interaction and kind of like paying attention, and you were just like, hey, you want to like write some stuff, and I was like, and I did, and rest is history. And so,
right, yeah, because we didn't really know you until this, and I remember when I met you. For the first time, I'd taken one of my students on a job shadow, and our mutual friend said, "Oh, you should meet Kurt. He listens to Cubs games during the day on the radio."
I don't remember that day, Corey. I'm
And
sorry.
I said, "What's his name, Bert?"
I just have one question. Does he like Chuck Mangione?
So I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where we started, and we just kind of slowly improved as we went. And next thing you know, we're a Podcast Awards finalist up against ESPN.
Yeah.
Completely undeserving of being there, but we were still there.
We didn't choose it. People did.
That's right.
We must
Yeah.
be having a good time because it feels like time has flown.
I know, and this is like one of the, Andy, you and I have been in bands, and you kind of hit those points where like it's just like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, and I can honestly say like I just don't feel that way with this because, I mean, there may be certain weeks where I'm just like I'm busy, I really wish I didn't need to do this tonight, so there's those types of nights, of course, especially when you try to be as consistent as we've been, with every single week, but it's almost like, in some ways, Kurt, you mentioned that the podcast has different stages or whatever, and it's like, I feel like we're in the stage now where it's like, this is how I get to hang out with you guys. That Andy, I would still see you, probably once or twice a month or something. We'd still hang out and stuff.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Like, this is, while I really enjoy talking about the Cubs and I like doing the podcast, it's also cool. I mean, Kurt, you and I would maybe see each other like once or twice a year.
Yeah, just a couple times probably. Yeah.
So,
Especially now that there's so many kids involved. When we started this thing, I think
Right.
Corey, you had one, right, at the time.
yeah, I had one.
So
yeah.
there's like one kid involved, and now we're what collectively
Just spitting them
up
out
to-
all over the place.
up to 5. Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
5 among the
We'll-
3 of us. Yeah.
we'll be soon.
But that's a nice thing about podcasting too, is that we can do it from our basements and we can do it through Google. There's technologies that allow us to do this now where we don't need to be in the same place. And
Yeah.
you know,
we can
compare-
do it while scratching our balls.
right.
Oh, sorry, did you catch that? I was just...
I mean, let's compare it a little bit to radio just for a second and think about this. If you listen to the radio and they have someone coming in, it's like a shitty phone call quality, and yeah, Google Plus hiccups for us every once in a while, and the sound may not be perfect, but I mean, compare our sound to the radio, it's better, and it's like doing it through this like DIY technology stuff, and not completely DIY, but I mean like, it's just kind of like figuring the different things and how it can work together to put out a decent sound, and I mean, look, there's people all over the world that are listening to us. And if we would have, say, early on, like I kind of talked with a radio station about maybe us doing our show on the radio, and Matt Vito was the one that told me, he's like, you don't want to do that. Like, and at the time, I'm like, well, that would be so cool to be on the radio. And he's just like, look at your reach there, and look at your reach, what you have through the podcast. And I'm glad that we stuck with the podcast, because I honestly, I mean, unless they were, a station was willing to like just take what we do for the podcast and squeeze it in somewhere, that's fine, like a local station, but the 3 of us wouldn't be able to do it together,
Mhm.
Right.
We didn't sell out.
That's right. That's right.
We've had a lot of money. We've had a lot of briefcases popped open full of bills on a table in front of us, and we've pushed it away.
So, I don't know, anything else you guys want to talk about as far as like the IVMV podcast specifically?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. No, it has been a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
it is hard, and it's hard to believe that it's been this long.
Yeah, I know, and I think you guys would agree with me that like really what makes it worth it is our community, and the fact that like I've been able to meet people that I would have never met before. I've been able to meet different types of people that I probably wouldn't. When you have something in common, then you realize you have a lot more things in common. And I know people that I haven't met in person yet, and it's just like I feel like I know a lot of our listeners just from their interaction with us, and I don't know, that's what makes it really enjoyable for me, is that I can kind of like know someone's personality and I've never met them before.
Yeah,
Yeah, the listeners have been so cool. Like we're so fortunate to have the listeners that we have. I'm just continually shocked how we don't really seem to have any total turds like among the group. Like everybody seems really cool, gets along, contributes to the discussions. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so moving away from our podcast and back onto the general topic of podcasting, I was just thinking everybody kind of listens differently, and I think it's possible that some people, maybe don't listen to that many podcasts and do listen to us, and so I thought maybe we could like kind of share how we listen to podcasts, like apps or programs, whatever you use.
Well, I started, like you said, when I was commuting. I didn't have like an iPhone then, so that back then it was just the iPod, and I would sync it every night before my drive. And I had like our car then had a thing, then you could control it through the radio. And like at the time, I thought that was the most incredible thing, that like my radio could then control the podcast. But so that's why I started. But now, since I don't commute, I just listen to them actually at my desk at work, because I work in a like open space environment with, they're not cubicles, we don't have walls, like you can see everybody in the big room, and it's pretty noisy, and I don't know, it's communal.
The
But
introvert's worst nightmare.
it kind of is, but luckily I really do enjoy the people I work with. But yeah, so I have like big like over the ear headphones. They're not noise canceling, but I listen to podcasts pretty much all day at work, off and on, in between meetings and that, other stuff I have to do. So mine is sitting at my desk on my computer while I'm working.
For me, I first loaded up my iPod, and then I moved on from that iPod and got an iPod Nano, which I still have, and I actually still load up podcasts. I know that's
You
like
sync, like you plug it in and sync it?
yeah.
Oh my God.
There's an app right on the phone now.
Yeah,
Is that for you?
I know, but see, it's like some of the vehicles I've had the good fortune of driving don't have like auxiliary inputs, and
Yes.
I don't know, they've been like kind of crappy. And so, but I just kind of got stuck in a rut with that too, and so yeah, and I realize that's an archaic thing to do, but I kind of enjoy the ritual of it a little bit, like plugging it in and making sure I have the latest episodes synced up. And
No, you know what, I did
Doesn't
that
it really
same thing.
piss you off when you don't, though? And you're like, no.
yes, it does, and
No!
that's happened to me a couple of times lately, where I'm kind of figuring out the iPod Nano. Like, yeah. So, but anyway, so I am driving a vehicle now that has an auxiliary input, so I have started listening to some through my phone via Stitcher. I know Corey doesn't like Stitcher that much. Is that true, Corey?
I don't care for Stitcher. I mean, I think that Stitcher, I wouldn't say that I dislike Stitcher, because as a podcaster, I know that they are the way that a lot of people consume podcasts. I know that, with them being introduced into vehicles, it's a good thing for podcasting. What my issue with Stitcher is that I don't want to get too technical here, but they don't, iTunes and other podcasting apps, they ping our feed, and so they're pulling our file from our hosting space. What Stitcher does is they ping it, they download it, so they download our file, and then they compress it smaller and they host it on their own. And so when they compress it, that decreases the
So it's lossy.
right. It decreases the quality of it, and it's like, I'm not quite as much of an audio snob as I used to be, because a lot of stuff's out of our control with the way that we record. But it's like, we have equipment to make our audio sound good and not to sound weird and stuff. And I mix things a certain way so that it still sounds good. And so I just don't like somebody messing with that. But
Right.
Hands off.
I can
speaker.
appreciate that. I mean, but for me, I consume podcasts like usually when I'm mowing or on my commute to work, which is really, it's only about 20 minutes or so, so it takes like there and back and maybe a little bit more to listen to episodes of typical podcasts. So I'm still trying to get used to listening to it on 1.5 or 2 times speed, but I don't like it that much still.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that either because it's sort of you lose the personality of the hosts. You don't get their
I would say, and I don't know exactly what Stitchers is like. I know that different apps kind of do it differently, and so I use Pocket Casts. That's the app that I use, and I think it costs a couple dollars. And so I can listen to a 1.5 speed. Basically, what it does is, in listening to it, it almost sounds like it's just the pauses. It's shrinking the pauses. I'm still able to track exactly what they're saying. I'm not missing anything, and I just like it. I spend 2 hours in the car every day on my commute. An hour both ways, and I just like it that if I do that, I can listen to like 3-hour-long episodes. And I subscribe to like a ton of podcasts. We'll get into that, but I subscribe to a lot, and so I can't listen at work. Like I'm the type I can listen to music at work, but if I start listening to a podcast, I just cannot concentrate on what my work is, and it's just I don't get stuff done. So I can't do that.
Yeah, I would say my job is probably unique in that I can work. Because I'm a graphic designer. Like I'm not reading words. Like I can't read something and listen to podcasts at the same time or
Right.
I can't. I can't retain both. So, but what I'm doing, I'm not like it's a different part of my brain, I guess.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
kind of
I
interesting
can.
that I can just sit there all day and listen to them.
Yeah, I could see that.
And when I'm working, like I'm usually, if I would be able to listen to a podcast at work, it would be during a time when I would be grading papers, and that's pretty hard to do and
Yeah.
listen to a podcast.
Drawing a lot of smiley faces if you're
Yeah,
listening
yeah.
to
Yeah,
a
smiley
comedy
face, stamps and stickers,
them.
uh, I teach seniors, by the way, so it makes that extra funny.
Not senior citizens.
Yeah, 12th graders.
Right. Yeah, that's so. I don't know. Let's get into like the podcasts that we like, and I know that if you're listening to this still, you have to be a fan of podcasts to make it this far into it. And I really like hearing what other people listen to. There used to be a podcast review show that I listened to back when I first started listening to in like 2007, around in there. And they would review 3 shows an episode. And what I really liked about it was that I was able to, they would play like clips from those shows. And so I was able to learn about new shows. And a lot of those shows, I think that's how I found 2 of probably my all-time favorite shows. And I think we'll touch on one of them. But that's how I found. And it was the people that submitted their shows were the just normal people like us. It wasn't the NPRs and the Radio Labs and all that kind of stuff. So it was people looking for exposure, and so I enjoyed finding them that way. So, first question: how many podcasts do you subscribe to?
I have to count.
I'm opening up my app right now. And the one cool thing about podcasting too is that, or with podcasting, is that with the new iOS, the podcast app is native and cannot be deleted. So that's good news for podcasters. That it's getting more people familiar with the term and with the medium.
I'm at 18, but I'm also I curate my list pretty regularly. Like, so some things will come on and off of there based on. I don't keep anything on there I don't listen to or don't keep up with, because it bothers me to have one in my list and let that and get really, really behind. So I'll get rid of it and then maybe come back to it later. Like, I'm just kind of like, I don't like emails in my inbox that are unread, and I don't like podcasts in my feed that I don't listen to.
We sound like kindred spirits in that regard, Kurt.
See, and I subscribe to a lot, and there are some, like, for example, Mark Maron's WTF. I'm not interested in 90% of his episodes, but I stay subscribed so that if there is one that I'm interested in, then I'll listen to it. Otherwise, as soon as I see it, if I'm not interested, I just delete it.
Well, and that's how I do that. I do I do that with some radio shows like Chicago, like Cap and Haw. I do that with, where Like now we're in Bears season. That's all they talk about. I don't listen to it
Right.
at all. But during the season, they interview like Jed Hoyer every Tuesday, I think, and they have Dempster on a lot, and they have like Cubs people on. And so the nice thing they do is they do like a 3-hour show, and they'll release just that segment in like a 15-minute clip, so I can just listen to the Hoyer interview every week. The rest of it, I don't really care about.
Hmm.
So every once in a while, I'll notice that they rip on Notre Dame, and then I'll listen to that and tell Corey. But otherwise, so I do have a little bit like that. Like right now, I'm unsubscribing to them because I don't know. I like the Bears, but I'm not a huge Bears fan enough to listen to them talk about them endlessly.
Right. So let's start with sports podcasts. Are there any favorites that you guys have?
I'm gonna say like I don't listen to a lot of sports podcasts. I know that's not a popular thing to say. Settle down. I'm not trying to start a battle here with you guys. Just calm it down a little bit, okay?
There's no Nebraska podcast in your feed?
There are, but I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, I've never really gotten into sports podcasts much. Now, that being said, I have listened to some Effectively Wild recently, but that's about it.
That one's on my list. That's pretty much a daily listen for me.
Yeah, I listen to that every morning.
And then also Fangraphs. So I mean, my sports stuff is pretty much exclusively baseball. I don't listen to other sports podcasts. So it's just Effectively Wild, Fangraphs, and then Cap and Haw occasionally.
Yeah. I listen to, college football podcast. I listen to that, and there's a couple, but yeah, Effectively Wild and Fangraphs. I listen to every episode of those. I listen to, I'm scrolling through here. I listen to the Cespedes Family Barbecue.
Oh yeah, I should check that one out.
I think that one would be good just because I like their Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my complaint with them is that it's just their episodes are really long. And their recording quality is one that makes it more difficult for me to listen to at like a faster speed. And so I don't know, like their episodes are long. But if you like them, one that I've recently found is the Prodcast, and it's a podcast done by Productive Outs. I think it's productiveouts.com, and that's the guys that do Puig Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
It's oh man, I feel like such an idiot because I can't think. They're like it's one of the guys from Thrice, and I think I just found them like last week because I was looking into Puig Destroyer, who by the way have a CD coming out, an album coming out tomorrow. But I think one of the guys said that he was in Skanking Pickle.
What?
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Oh man.
But I don't know. It's kind of along the lines of Cespedes Family Barbecue, Cespedes, whatever. And so yeah, that I listened to Fringe Average until that was done, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The only other Cubs podcast that I listen to, and I think there's a couple other ones, is I do listen to Wrigleyville Nation podcast from time to time. I wouldn't say I listen every week, but at least 3 out of 4 episodes I listen to, and I like those guys. So
yeah, I listen to them occasionally too.
And I do listen to a Reds podcast. I listen to Red Leg Weekly just to hear what's going on over there. I met Dave, one of the hosts. I met him at New Media Expo a couple years ago, so I listen to them. What about, I don't know, just throw out a couple of other ones. I mean, let's kind of do the NPR type shows.
Yeah, what are your big time / storyteller ones? But mine are kind of the usuals when it comes to that, which like NPR Planet Money, Freakonomics, Radio Lab. I listen to Studio 360 with Kurt Anderson. And,
by the way, I'm going to jump in for a second. Like Radio Lab, I think is possibly the best podcast out there.
Yeah.
I really
amazing.
enjoy Radiolab.
Yeah.
Their production
And
is amazing.
kind of, I think, similar to those styles, but maybe, I mean, these are also pretty big ones, but 99% Invisible I love
Yes,
because it's
yes.
short and the storytelling is great. And then it's like their one of their network podcasts called Love Plus Radio, which I really like. And that's a fairly new one for me, but those are my storytelling NPRs.
Have we recently talked about 99% Invisible on here, or am
Maybe. I feel like
imagining
I recommended that. That might be my only contribution to your feed is that one.
Oh man, that is so
That's so
good,
good.
and it's only like 20 minutes long.
Mhm.
And I think Andy, I think I was talking about it with you, maybe.
Yeah, we talked about it the couple weekends ago when we hung out.
Yeah, that podcast is so good, and basically it's like looking at design, I guess,
Mhm.
but not
Design is a broad term of like anything.
right, not the design that you're thinking. It's not like interior design discussions or anything. It's not like HGTV.
Yeah.
It's like
Sometimes it's architecture, sometimes it's
but it's like kind of historical. It's super interesting. And Roman Mars, that host that, he was actually on with my friend Ray that does 100 Words or Less, which is kind of a Mark Maron type show, but he interviews a lot of like people within independent music and stuff. But he did an interview with Roman Mars that was really good.
Yeah, I've since listened to 99% Invisible a couple times since we had that talk, Corey, and I've enjoyed it. But the ones that I listen to in this category are, I don't know, kind of. I don't have a long list, is what I'm saying. I listen to Welcome to Night Vale every once in a while.
So good. I love that.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into that one.
Oh my gosh, I listen to that when I go to bed at night. I turn it on, and that dude's voice just puts me right to sleep. So
I don't know if that qualifies for the category that we're talking about, but and then also ones that are kind of comedy related, but that sort of have like a human interest / I don't know, narrative quality to them would be Mike Detective, which I think is dead now, but that's a really fun series of podcasts to listen to. And then also the Dead Authors podcast that Paul F. Tompkins does.
So you're not still listening to This American Life?
Not very much. No.
Yeah, that one got a little heavy for me. I mean, I still like it, but I don't subscribe to it.
I listen to that every week.
Yeah.
Mine that fall into that category, I like The Moth a lot. I really like storytelling, and The Moth is really good. Let's see, I'm scrolling through here. I guess this kind of falls into it, Stuff You Should Know. I like that podcast a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The Truth. Do you guys listen to The Truth?
I have listened to The Truth a few times.
I think isn't that another one in the network with 99% Invisible and
It could be.
Love
Yeah,
Plus
it's
Radio?
like
I think it is.
it's like
Radiotopia.
fiction. It's like a fiction.
Yeah. I've listened to that one, but didn't care for it too much.
Really? Huh. What else do I listen to? I listen to Grammar Girl. I guess that falls in.
Yeah, me too. Man, I seriously, I went through a stretch there where I listened to every single episode.
Yeah, which I listen to those episodes, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to remember that. I'm still going to make those same grammatical errors.
But, I mean, you got to admit she does a good job explaining things.
Oh, yeah, definitely. What else do I listen to? There's also one on that same network as Grammar Girl, and it's called The Public Speaker. It's that quick and dirty tips network. I listen to that, but yeah, like I'm looking right now. The TED Radio Hour, I like that. But Welcome to Night Vale, man, that is so good. If you don't, and it's definitely like an acquired. Like I think the first time you're listening to it, you're gonna be like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah,
It's kind of like
it's bizarre.
It's like a mixture of like old sci-fi and like a Prairie Home Companion, and it's just really bizarre. But like you have to listen to it a couple times, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And then let's see, what else do I listen to in that? I think that's about it. Kind of.
Corey, did you ever give your total number of podcasts?
I subscribe to 103.
Oh man.
Another one though. This is kind of in that same genre. It's called the Startup Podcast, and what it is, it's one of the I can't think of his name. Crap, I can't think of his name. Alex Bloomberg, and I think he was one of the producers for This American Life, and he is trying to start a podcast network, and this podcast is walking you through him trying to start it. So like in his first episode, I think it was his first one, he pitches his idea to like one of those like venture capitalists or whatever, you know, those people that you try to, those billionaires that'll like fund startups and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only
You were
4
right,
episodes
venture-
in. What's that?
I was just gonna say yes, venture capitalists.
Yeah, so that one's really interesting because he's like not good at like trying to pitch his like he has a good idea. He wants to start a podcast network, but like a really big podcast, like an NPR type thing. And so it's really interesting to hear. And like he talks like he shares, like you hear the conversations of him trying to come up with like his pitch for it, the different names he's thinking of. So it's just like transparent. So it's kind of a cool idea.
It's like reality podcasting.
Yeah, it is. So that's, I don't know. I listen to a lot of political ones, I guess, because I don't watch the news, and so I kind of feel, which the best one that I really like is called Left, Right, and Center, and it's just kind of like a discussion with 3 people from the entire like political spectrum, but it's not like yelling at each other and everything that cable news is. But it's like pretty intelligent people and like interesting conversations, and it comes out once a week, and it's only like 20 or 30 minutes long. That's a NPR type production. I don't know, anything else? Any other? Twit. I listen to Twit. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I listen to
Kurt,
Twit.
you do,
That's
obviously.
religiously on Monday. I really like because I like tech stuff, but then also from that same network, I listen to Mac Break weekly. They have a huge network. I mean, they're giant.
Right. So that's Leo Laporte's technology podcast. And I listen to
Who's that? I'm just kidding.
I listen to a ton of podcasts on like podcasting and new media and stuff like that too. So like a lot of like social media ones and all sorts of that, kind of just like branding and entrepreneur type stuff.
Yeah. So we've covered like once you get out of like you've covered sports, storytelling, NPR-ish kind of stuff. Like then you start to get into my niche stuff that I'm interested in, like homebrewing. I have like several, at least 3 or 4 homebrewing podcasts I listen to, and then also one that I really like is called Cord Killers, and that's about cord cutting, not being in cable, that kind of thing. And I don't love the host, but I like the content. Like Brian Brushwood, if you listen to other podcasts on Twit, you might know him, but he's kind of annoying. I don't really like him, but I do like the show, and I like the stuff they share.
See, yeah, and and now we're kind of getting into the like thing. I like all these other shows. I like Radiolab and all the, This American Life and all those kind of things. I like that, but I can hear that somewhere else, and I can hear that type of content somewhere else. I can't hear like what you're talking about there, like the very narrowly niche stuff on my interests. I can't hear that. Like those are the ones that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Beersmith is a good one. If anybody who's homebrewing or likes beer, and Dr. Homebrew, there's one called the Sunday Session that the Brewing Network does that used to be really amazing because they actually talked about homebrewing, but now they just swear for 2 hours and get drunk, so I don't really like it much anymore, but that one was pretty good too.
I also listen to a lot of podcasts on TV shows that I watch. So like the Walking Dead cast, I like that one, and really pretty much any show that I really get into, I look to see if there's a podcast on that show.
I haven't really done that since Lost.
American Horror Cast, I like that show.
Horrorcast?
American Horror Cast.
Oh. I like the other name better.
Oh, and we should mention like our friends, the podcast. I mean, I listen to all their shows. Michael from Galesburg, we've talked. He's going to be on here doing our our episode with us here in a couple weeks. He does the Awesome 80s podcast where they review TV shows and movies from the 80s. Bob from Moline does I Hate Critics, which is a movie review podcast. Our wives, Andy, your wife, and my wife, they do Mommy's Cocktail Hour. So obviously I listen to all those.
I don't.
Oh, you gotta listen to Mommy's Cocktail Hour.
I do.
Right?
I do.
What Lana wants, Andy. Andy.
She's currently pregnant, so no Mommy's Cocktails. 4 an hour. But yeah, I'm sorry. You still rocking your
No,
life.
how about you, Andy? Like, what else? We're kind of doing the niche down stuff now.
I don't know, nothing really other than like Grammar Girl you could consider sort of a niche podcast, but one of the podcasts I listened to when I first got into podcasting also played this game called WoW, World of Warcraft. And so I listened to this podcast called The Instance forever. That was all about World of Warcraft. I'm so embarrassed to be talking about this. But I do like gaming, computer games, and so sometimes I get swept up in stuff about that.
So let's talk about, Andy, before we started recording, you and I were kind of talking about podcasts that we liked a lot but aren't around anymore.
Yeah, I think you and I both, and I don't know if Kurt, you listened to this at all, but Planned Brotherhood was a big one.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Corey and I listened to that almost nonstop on the drive to spring training.
So oh yeah, so you're familiar with that.
Yeah, that one was good.
And unfortunately, like I that is seriously probably my favorite podcast of all time.
Wow.
And that was simply two brothers that sat behind mics and talked about their fucked up
Dysfunctional
lives.
family, right? But you know what's sad is it's unfortunate that shows like that you can't get it anymore.
Right, because I think they didn't want to pay for their hosting after I mean, basically, they kind of got to the point where it's like, okay, we've talked about everything crazy that's happened in our lives. I mean, they just came from a dysfunctional family of Jehovah's Witnesses, so there's a lot of, like, religion stuff, and they basically said that the podcast was their therapy sessions, you know, that
Right.
it was so they didn't have to go to a
Oh man.
psychiatrist.
They were like the most. It was so honest. It was uncomfortable, but hilarious.
But at the same time, it wasn't like okay, we're gonna do the show and this is the topic we're doing. It was like just a conversation, and you had the impression that a lot of that stuff, like from their childhood, they had never even talked about with each other since then, you know, and it was just a lot of like telling stories from their childhoods, and I mean, at the same time, they were like very funny guys. In fact, one of them, Nick, is in. He does the podcast, The Grapes of Rad, now with two other guys, and that's a really good show. Although they've gotten like they haven't done a show since the end of August, and they were like weekly. In fact, they're there for a while. They were putting out 2 a week. But if you liked Planned Brotherhood, then Grapes of Rad is a really good show, and they're really talented, you know, like musicians and stuff. So it's like kind of an interesting show because they work a lot of music into it, and they're just, you know, funny guys and good conversations.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say that while you were asking about sports podcasts, one podcast that I thought was defunct, called Mike and Tom Eat Snacks, they have 4 new episodes out now.
What?
Yes, I just noticed that in
That's
my
why you
feed.
don't. That's why you don't unsubscribe, guys.
No,
That's why
I
you don't
didn't.
unsubscribe.
I'm still subscribed to them, and I don't see them in my feed.
Listen to the Nintendo freaks. Stay subscribed.
You're right. 5 new episodes.
So,
One just released today.
Like, I almost blew a gasket when you were talking about sports podcasts. I just saw that they had new ones out, and that's probably my number 1 podcast of all time.
That one is amazing. I think we're all.
Yeah.
I think you guys got me into that one, and that was another one of those. At first, I was like, I don't know, I don't really like this, but the more I listen to it, the more I love it.
Did you describe what it was, Andy?
Yeah, it's Michael Ian Black, you know, well-known comedian who was on The State, and then also Tom Cavanaugh, who's an actor most famous for his role on the TV show Ed, but he's
Or the
Park Ranger and Yogi
Bear.
Bear. And yeah, so he's been in like Lifetime movies and stuff. But anyway, these two guys, they get together, and the premise is they're going to get together and eat a new snack every week, and then give that snack a rating, talk about it. But they they improv and just go down these crazy tangents, and they do anything but talk about the snack pretty frequently. And it's I don't know, their chemistry together is pretty funny. Tom kind of plays the, I don't know, sort of the conservative, goody two shoes type of guy, and Mike is sort of the edgy one, I guess. But man, I get a huge kick out of it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's good.
All right, stop right there. Our battery's about to go dead.
Oh snap! I can't believe there's new ones. I'm so excited now.
I know, me too.
I'm gonna be busting those out tomorrow. Because I still have a whole bunch of old ones that I've listened to before, and they're marked as unplayed, so I didn't notice that there were new ones in the.
How could I give you guys a copy of the Chinese Crunch Crunch
I
episode?
don't know. Have you have the MP3 or whatever MP4 downloaded?
Yeah, I do.
You have a Gmail address.
Yeah.
You could put it on Google Drive.
Yeah.
'Cause it's probably too big. Share it on Google Drive, and then you just put our email addresses in, and it'll send us an email.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. 'Cause you guys need to hear that. It's incredible. It's my favorite.
It's better than the high school band. I don't even know what the snack was. I just know that it involved a high school band and dripping.
Oh yeah.
Bloop.
Yeah, it's better than everything that they've done.
Okay.
Man, I can't believe how long this episode's gone. I'm sorry.
I know.
So let's just kind of wrap it up.
That's
All
what she
right.
said.
Let's see, drive.
Okay, I'm gonna come back in. All right, so those are kind of the shows that we like, and we just thought we'd share with you what we like. And honestly, I know, speaking for myself, I'm interested in hearing what all of you like, everybody listening to this. So, and the podcasts that you like, even if we mentioned them, talk about them on or whatever. And I think the best place to do this is in either I'll post a link to our Facebook page for this episode and leave comments in there, or you can do it from ivnb.com, on this post. But leave comments and let us know. I'm just interested. I like, podcasting is important to me, and I enjoy it a lot, and so I'm interested in hearing even how you found us. Whenever I meet somebody, I'm always like, okay, so how did you find us? That's so bizarre. So. I want to hear how you found us. I want to hear, and then just the podcasts that you like, and just share with everybody, because there's so many podcasts out there, and even though I try to subscribe to them all, I can't. I can only subscribe to 103 guys, although it was 100 even for a month straight, and then last week I added 3 more. So
you're gonna have to get rid of 3 maybe.
Yeah, I could go in and clean some up, but so anyways, National Podcasting Day, and so what can you do? That there's things that we can all kind of do to raise awareness. That's what the purpose of this day is to kind of raise awareness for podcasting. So here's some things you can do. You can tell someone what podcasts are and where to find them. There's so many people out there that just they might be familiar with the term, but they think, oh, well, I don't have an iPhone or an iPod, so I can't listen, or that kind of stuff. And it's just making people aware of the different ways that you can find them and listen to them. Another thing you can do is share your favorite podcast with somebody. If you know Cubs fans, tell Cubs fans about our podcast. But if you like Radiolab or any of those, just let somebody know that you think they might like it too. And another thing you can do is send feedback to your favorite podcast. Thank them for their work. There's so many people out there that are doing podcasts that it's not a real high-paying gig. I guess we'll put it that way. It requires a lot of time, and there's not much financial return, and people just do it because they love it. And so, do that. You can provide ratings and reviews on iTunes or Stitcher, or just comment on their website. That's we talked about how much the interaction with our listeners means to us, and even the bigger podcasts. That you might think that, oh, I'm sure there's lots of people that email them and stuff like that, and you'd be surprised. I mean, I think even the big podcasts would enjoy hearing from you that you appreciate what they're doing and everything. So if you're not on Facebook, and basically there's a hashtag that people are going to be using on the 30th, on Tuesday, and it's the hashtag National Podcast Day. And so and honestly, it'll probably, it's not like at midnight on Tuesday night you can't use it anymore, but tweet at us and use that hashtag and tell us what your favorite podcasts are. I'm just really interested in hearing it. So, and then really, I mean, if you're interested in the idea of podcasting, and you have topics that you're passionate about or things that you're interested in, it's really not that hard to do a podcast. And you can make it as complicated as you want, or you can make it as easy as you want. And with a lot of the technology that's around now, you can do it it's much easier to do it than when we first started. And so, if there's something you're interested in and you would like to podcast, I'd be more than happy to tell you what I know and help you, figure out what equipment you would need. And like I said, I mean, you can get like the mic that you use, Kurt. That's like at the time it was like $35. I think now it's like $55 or something like that. But just a simple USB microphone, and there's free recording programs, and it's really pretty easy to do if you want to go simple to get started. And I'd be more than happy to help anybody that's interested in doing that. So anyways, this was a fun discussion for me. I don't know. Honestly, podcasting is kind of like the Cubs. I'm eager to talk about it at any time, and I don't really get to talk podcasting that much. I mean, like when the three of us hang out, we might say, "Oh, have you heard this show?" and things like that. But really, my only time to talk about podcasting and podcasting strategy and stuff like that is when I go to these conferences, which are only once or twice a year. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope our listeners did.
Yeah, it was actually kind of nice not to talk about the Cubs for once.
Yeah, you're right.
Cubs.
I actually
I didn't
did
have to
find
read about
myself lamenting that the season was over today, but yeah, you're right. It's nice to hang out and talk about other things.
Yeah. So, thanks for listening, and again, leave us your comments and stuff. We want to hear from you on this topic, and we'll be back Sunday evening at 8:30 p.m. Central. If you want to watch it live, you can go to ivmb.com/live. We're going to talk about, I started putting our agenda together. Should we give everybody a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, sure.
I was thinking we could talk about whether or not
Podcast diehards.
I was thinking we could talk about whether or not Theo Epstein should have his contract extended. I didn't read the blog post. I know there were a couple of blog posts about that today, and I thought, oh, that'd be a really good topic, and kind of talk about the direction of things are going. And I had some other topic, and I can't remember what it was. So I don't have my Google Docs open. But yeah, thank you for listening to this bonus episode. If you stuck around to the end, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you on Sunday evening. Go podcasting.
Until next time.
Until next time, go podcasting. Happy Podcast Day. All right. I normally have my outro thing kind of scripted a little bit, so I have some idea which direction I'm taking it. That one I didn't.
That's good.
All right. I can't believe I have to edit an episode tonight. That's such bullshit.
Should put that. That should be like the outtakes at the end of the podcast episode. I can't believe I have to edit this.
I already turned it off.
like a lot of people that do that. Like I actually like kind of like is it Effectively Wild that does that?